In 1911, the theft and subsequent 2-year search for an important Renaissance painting helped turn it into the most famous painting in the world. This is the story of the theft of the Mona Lisa. Hi and welcome back to the Historical Crimes and Criminals podcast. I'm Steve, your host, and it's a bit strange. This is the first time I'm doing some recording for ages and ages, having pre-recorded quite a few episodes before I launched the podcast. It kind of feels strange being back behind the microphone. The 14th, 15th and 16th century in Europe was known as the Renaissance period. It's debated by Renaissance historians exactly when it started, but we certainly know that those centuries were included. In this time, a distinctive type of art, paintings, sculptures, architecture, music, and literature was produced. Most art critics attribute the Mona Lisa as the masterpiece of that period. Leonardo da Vinci began the painting in 1503 in Florence, Italy. He spent 4 years on the Mona Lisa, which was originally painted for a wealthy Florentine silk merchant, Francesco del Giocondo, as a portrait of his third wife, Lisa Gherardini. After becoming very impatient, Giocondo refused to pay Leonardo da Vinci for his work, which led the Mona Lisa to be sold to the King of France, French King Francis I. After the French Revolution, the painting actually hung in Napoleon's bedroom before being bequeathed to the French people and subsequently being housed in the Louvre at the beginning of the 19th century. On August the 21st, 1911, a thief dressed in a white worker's smock entered the Louvre, closed because it was a Monday. In the Salon Carré, the Louvre's gallery of Renaissance treasures, he lifted the small wooden painting off the wall and removed its glass shadow box. Hiding the artwork under his smock, he then casually walked out onto the streets of Paris. Incredibly, it would be 26 hours before anybody noticed the Mona Lisa had gone missing. Da Vinci's painting of the 16th century Florentine noblewoman with the enigmatic smile ranks as one of the world's most instantaneously recognised images now. However, by 1911, the Mona Lisa wasn't the instantly recognising painting we know. When the Washington Post first reported the theft and appraised the painting's value at $5 million, the paper mistakenly ran a picture of the Mona Vanna. This was a nude charcoal sketch that some believed Da Vinci made in preparation to paint the Mona Lisa. The heist was only discovered when a wealthy museum patron and amateur painter arrived at the Salon Carré to study La Gioconde, as the French call the Mona Lisa. He found a blank wall space, but the Louvre routinely removed the artwork for photography, so him and the guards thought nothing of the missing work. But after several hours, he alerted the staff. That evening, the police announced the theft. Georges Benedict, curator of the Louvre, told the press that only a practical joker would steal such a prized painting, as it would be too difficult to fence. The gendarmes, the French police, believed the thief would demand a ransom within 48 hours, but 2 days passed and no one came forward. The thief had left behind very few clues. A plumber recalled helping a man who had taken off a doorknob while locked in a stairwell. They found the wooden frame and glass covering box on the staircase. The frame had one thumbprint. Paris Police Inspector Alphonse Bertillon, often credited with inventing the mugshot, believed in the new technique of fingerprinting. However, he had 750,000 prints on file, too many to check. Instead, he fingerprinted the 257 Louvre employees who'd been working that day. Police distributed 6,500 leaflets with the painting's image and offered a 40,000 francs reward. On September the 7th, police arrested the poet Guillaume Apollinaire on suspicion of involvement in the theft of the Mona Lisa and some Egyptian statuettes from the Louvre. The poet's secretary, Géry Perret, who was also a small-time art thief, had gone to the Paris Journal newspaper after falling out with Apollinaire, claiming to have information on the Mona Lisa. Police interrogated Apollinaire and eventually released him, but not before he gave up the name of a close friend, the painter Pablo Picasso. Picasso knew nothing about the Da Vinci, but did return some Iberian Bronze Age statues stolen by Perret in 1907. Meanwhile, the Louvre kept an empty space open for the vanished painting. Crowds of curious onlookers came to gaze at the vacant wall. Conspiracy theories abounded. Some thought it was a forgery ring that took it and were selling forgeries to naive but wealthy art lovers. Some suspected a robber baron, perhaps J.P. Morgan, who'd played fence and purchased the original outright. Others speculated still that Adam Worth, the master criminal who had once purloined Thomas Gainsborough's Georgina, Duchess of Devonshire, had taken it. However, he had died in 1902 and was buried in a London pauper's grave. And for over 2 years, the painting remained missing. And then, the thief stepped forward. Italian Vincenzo Peruggia was a house painter, mason, and aspiring portraitist. He had also worked for a firm that cut glass for the Louvre. During the time of the theft, he was part of the glass crew that had worked there. The police had interviewed Peruggia at his Paris apartment in 1911. They believed, however, his alibi that he'd been working in a different location the day of the theft. Unbeknown to them, the Mona Lisa was in the apartment, stashed in a trunk. In December 1913, Peruggia wrote to Alfredo Geri, an antique dealer who had advertised for fine art in several Italian newspapers. Signing his letter V. Leonard, he indicated he had the Mona Lisa. Mistakenly believing the painting had been taken by Napoleon during his looting of Italian art, Peruggia expected a reward for returning the painting to his homeland. Geri contacted Giovanni Poggi, director of the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, and they set up a meeting with Peruggia in Milan. Poggi authenticated the painting and persuaded Peruggia to leave it for safekeeping. They then contacted the Italian police. Christopher Maranello of Art Recovery International, a modern company that provides art recovery services to museums and private collectors, tells us that Peruggia's behaviour, holding and hiding the painting for years, is common amongst art thieves. Quote, "A typical art thief tries to get money, but when they can't sell it, they store it until they can get money. But as soon as art is stolen, it decreases in value. This happened in the 1800s when there was no internet. Today, everyone knows about every single art theft, whether the turn-of-a-century Matisse or a 7-foot garden gnome." In court, Peruggia seemed agitated. Repeatedly he shouted and interrupted the court. He argued with prosecutors, he argued with his lawyer. The judge would bang his gavel and tell him to calm down. First he said he worked alone, then he implicated 2 friends, neither of whom were found to be involved. Throughout the court proceedings, he maintained that the theft was an act of patriotism. "I will make my fortune and it will arrive in one shot," he had written in a letter to his father 4 months after the theft. On the 5th of June 1914, he was given a light sentence, just 1 year and 15 days. He served only 7 months. After fighting for Italy in World War I, he returned to France, where he died in 1925. After a brief tour of Italy, La Gioconda, as the Italians call it, was returned to the Louvre. During World War II, the Mona Lisa, singled out as the most endangered artwork in the Louvre, was evacuated to various locations in France's countryside, returning to museum in 1945 after peace had been declared. The Mona Lisa has also travelled the world. In 1963, it went to the United States. It drew 40,000 people per day during its 6-week stay at New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art and the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. It also toured to Tokyo and Moscow in 1974. The Mona Lisa is in fairly good condition for its age. A bit of technical stuff for you knowledgeable art lovers and restorers. The panel shows some evidence of warping from resistance to its original frame and to braces added by early restorers. To prevent a widening of a small crack visible near the centre of the upper edge of the painting, dovetails were added to the back of the painting. Restorers later pasted heavy canvas over the crack and replaced the top dovetail. The glass protecting the Mona Lisa was replaced with a bulletproof case after several attacks in 1956, one of which damaged an area near the subject's left elbow. The Mona Lisa thus escaped harm from acts of vandalism in 1974 during the work's visit to Tokyo, and in 2009 when a museum goer threw a ceramic mug at it. All of the great artists had students working and sometimes finishing their works. In the world today, at least a dozen excellent replicas of the Mona Lisa exist, many of them done by Leonardo's students. One such copy at the Prado Museum in Madrid was thought to have been painted years after the original. However, during restoration of the painting in early 2010, which included using infrared reflectology to examine the work between the surface, conservators discovered that the painting had changes that mirrored those of the original. The findings suggest that the artist, likely to be one of the master's assistant, painted the copy alongside Leonardo as he worked on the Mona Lisa in his studio. Thus, the Prado version became the only known copy completed during Leonardo's lifetime. Conservators cleaned the entire painting and removed its black background, revealing a detailed landscape resembling Leonardo's version in vibrant colours, possibly evoking those of the original, before the varnish applied by early restorers darkened with time. Well, that's it for another episode of the Historical Crimes and Criminals podcast. If you enjoyed that, please subscribe, tell your friends, and find us on Twitter. We are a growing group, and I post all the pictures for all the episodes, so find us on there. I've been Steve, your host. Till next time, bye bye.